There's two separate strands of argument here. Number one, that the Treasury could have prevented it in the first place. And number two, what is the White House posture on this bill? When the excise tax passed the House, the President put out a statement saying it rightly reflects the outrage that many people feel, yet all weekend long it appears the White House has been backing away from that. And the White House Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, has been telling many people, including the financial community, that this bill is not going to reach the President's desk.
Well, look, George, I think on the first point, you really have to differentiate between what you can legally do about bonuses moving forward and about clawing back old bonuses. Clawing back old bonuses really does invoke constitutional issues, but as the President said, we are going to pursue, and I know the Congress feels the same way, any legal means necessary to do so. So I think the important point about this bill is that you understand the anger that the bill engenders, because the idea that a firm would take taxpayer money and use it to pay out bonuses, retention bonuses, to retain employees who, by their work, partially led to hundreds of thousands of other people losing their jobs. That's the sentiment behind the bill, but the consequences of the bill, a lot of people in the financial community say that banks who are now getting money are going to try to give it back as quickly as they can because this could cripple them. And then secondly, that the private investors, the government needs to come in to help buy up the toxic assets in the bank are going to be scared off. And this is a really important point. This kind of clawback legislation has to balance between the need to address the absolutely reasonable and well-justified anger of the Congress and the American people about how this money is being spent in these undeserved bonuses, and the need to pursue financial stability. I think the way the President says is exactly correct. What happened at AIG, vis-a-vis these bonuses, is a symptom of a much larger problem, and we cannot lose sight of the larger problem, which is stabilizing financial markets.
But that's what I'm trying to get at. Does the President believe that the House bill and the Senate draft bill to tax and have an excise tax on these bonuses undermines the financial system? Is he opposed to them?
I would say the way Senator Conrad said it is absolutely correct. I think the President would be concerned that this bill may have some problems in going too far. The House bill may go too far in terms of some legal issues, constitutional validity, using the tax code to surgically punish a small group. But that may be a dangerous way to go. That said, let's see what comes out of the Senate. He has not said he won't sign this bill. Let's see what comes out of the Senate. Let's see what gets to his desk.
Well, George, it's important to remember here that, and the President said this on the White House lawn this week, I was really struck by the fact the President said, well, the problem here is that people are making this kind of money to begin with. You know, it was back in 2007 that Barney Frank authored a bill that capped executive compensation across the board, well before any bailouts, well before any crisis on Wall Street. And I believe that then Senator Barack Obama had the companion legislation in the Senate. Now we read this morning that the administration is talking about broad-based caps on compensation. The answer here is to focus on AIG. What House Republicans proposed was that we ought to say to AIG, no more bailout money until you go and collect back 100% of the bonuses that you've distributed.
Does everybody else at the table agree with that proposal?
I don't. No, I don't. I don't, in the following sense. You can't, you said it yourself, George, a second ago. There's something called resolution authority. That's a very complicated way of saying the FDIC can come in and take a bank into bankruptcy. We know how to do it. We've done it. What we don't have at this point is the legal authority to do the kinds of interventions that Representative Pence said. We need those. We're talking about those. We need to have those moving forward. But the idea of going back and kind of clawing back contracts that were legitimately made,
but I'm not talking about clawing back. We own 80% of AIG. I didn't support the Wall Street bailout, still don't, but we essentially nationalized AIG. And all these legal niceties notwithstanding, you know, it's quite frankly, it's anti-competitive and anti-free market for the Congress of the United States to be passing legislation that targets, or to use Charlie Rangel's statement earlier in the week, that uses the Internal Revenue Code as a political weapon.
How about you, Senator Conrad? Do you agree that no new money to AIG unless they give back these bonuses in some fashion?
Look, to me, unfortunately, the cat's out of the barn. The horse is out of the barn. You've already put up $170 billion. So, you know, frankly, I would take a different tack. I would call the head of AIG to the Treasury, and I would say to him, look, you call in those employees and you tell them they give back the money or they're out of a job. And The head of AIG has absolutely got that authority. He's the head of the company, and we own as
several of them have already given back. Several employees have already given back some of the bonuses. We're going to learn more.
Yes,
about that
I understand some have, but many have not. And you really have to ask yourself, what is in their head? What can they possibly be thinking of that they're collecting bonuses in the midst of a crisis like this? Exactly. I mean, shame on them.
They would not have jobs were it not for taxpayer money going into AIG. I think that the proposal that the congressman has outlined makes more sense. It's more targeted. But obviously, if Treasury had put provisions in the contract as a condition of receiving the funds, this never would have happened in the first place.
I want to move on to the president's budget that's going to start to be considered in both the House and the Senate this week. And we all saw the reports on Friday from the Congressional Budget Office saying that the president's economic assumptions were a little too optimistic, according to the Congressional Budget Office. They say the deficit will actually be $2.3 trillion higher over the next 10 years than the president estimates. And Senator Collins, you supported President Obama on the stimulus package.
Yes.
Can you support his budget?
No.
Why not?
Because it brings our debt levels to an unprecedented level. It would double the public debt in 5 years, triple it in 10 years, the highest percentage of GDP since after World War II. CBO says by the year 2019, 82% of GDP, that's the equivalent of the public debt. That is not sustainable. It poses a threat to the basic health of our economy.
Senator Conrad, you've had questions about the president's budget as well, although you support the general approach. I want to show a question we got from one of our listeners. Let me put it up on the board. It's Lori Watkins of Rolla, North Dakota. The president in his budget has a plan to cap payments for agriculture subsidies at $250,000 and also no subsidies to farms making in revenues more than $500,000 a year. And here's what Lori asked. She says, you're opposed to President Obama's budget because it is not sustainable. Why then are you against cutting farm subsidies for farmers making $500,000 or more? Isn't this the same as the AIG bonuses?
No, not at all. And that's not what the proposal does. They've just got it wrong. The president's proposal does not relate to farm income. It relates to farm sales.
Revenues.
Farm sales. No one has ever proposed limiting payments on that basis. That was just a mistake. So I could not support that. Look, we just passed the Farm Bill last year. In the United States Senate, we got 81 votes. It did not add a dime to the deficit. It was fully paid for. And I don't think this is the time to reopen it. On the other hand, I will propose a budget that does have savings in agriculture, because we're going to have savings across the broad spectrum in light of these new numbers. Look, $2.3 trillion over 10 years is a stunning amount of money. In fairness to this administration, they locked down their forecast 3 months ago. There's been a lot of bad news since. So we've got a worsening situation. That requires adjustments, and it's going to have to be across a broad front, including agriculture.
And the president's prepared to accept these kinds of adjustments?
The president is prepared to negotiate on this budget with folks like those at this table, and certainly Senator Conrad has been a long-time budget negotiator at times like these. And the president's been very clear about this, as has our budget director. We don't expect these folks to sign on the dotted line. What we do expect, and what we are going to stand very firm on, because this president, this vice president have made this clear, that are these priorities that brought them to the dance here. Energy reform, health care reform, education, all done in the context of a budget that cuts the deficit in half.